amazing, exciting first 2 days, and I have no reason to think that today won't be equally amazing. And so we're going to start out great here. Of course, the theme for the day is to keep it simple and standardized. And as I was saying earlier, when I think standardized, one of the first things to come to mind is the AVIXA standards and the Standards Steering Committee. And so we are pleased to have 3 individuals who are associated with that, with the standards organization there at AVIXA, to join us and give us a little overview. And so we'll go and let you introduce yourselves. Pam, we'll start with you.
That sounds good. Hi, my name is Pam Taggart. I'm VP of Content at AVIXA. So many of you knew the predecessor to this, Mandy, and what I do now is a combination of some of the things she used to do, plus show conferences, basically anything that has to do with education in whatever format we deliver it, or standards or best practices or guides. So that's kind of my role at AVIXA. And then do we want to go around and introduce everyone, and then I can talk as short as possible about AVIXA?
Yep. And you might want to check to make sure you're using the right microphone. I'm not sure that we are picking up your headset mic. So Greg.
Yeah, hi. I was just typing that into the chat. Thank you. I'm Greg Jeffries, and the reason I'm here is that I currently chair AVIXA's Standards Steering Committee, which we call SteerCo, a nice little thing. So I've been involved with standards for a long time. I also lead a small specialist company in the UK called Visual Displays, and really delighted to be here. Thank you.
And Lance, good to see you again. Lance and I were on a call earlier this morning already for some certification steering committee stuff. So good to see you again this morning.
Yes, sir. Same. 2 times in a day. I know it's going to be good.
Yeah.
Hi, Lance Feldenkreis. Serve on the Standard Steering Committee under Greg. This will be my 3rd year. I think my final year as well. Have a lot of experience with standards, productization as well, which sometimes gets confused. So happy to clear some of that up, but also have contributed in the past to AVIXA standards in writing, aside from actually being on the steering committee. So happy to be here.
Great. And can you hear me better now?
Yes.
Okay. I can't hear anything because I'm sick, so it sounds exactly the same to me, but hopefully I'm coming through more clearly. So I know I see a lot of familiar faces as I was looking around before I came in, so I won't spend a long time explaining what AVIXA is, but maybe just pertinent to the conversation we're about to have today. So AVIXA is, it stands for Audiovisual Integrated Experience Association. We produce the Infocom trade shows. We co-own ISE, Integrated Systems Europe, and through partners, several other trade shows across the globe. So that's a piece of what we do. But as an association that's been around since 1939, we span the entire value chain from manufacturers all the way through to end users. And because of that, we have a unique perspective to tackle things like standards for the industry. So I think we're going to talk a bit today about some of the work that we've got ongoing, but more importantly, and I know Greg's going to make this point as well, we're finding more and more that our audience is widening at AVIXA, and that's presented some new challenges for us. It's tough to be everything to everyone unless you get the community involved. And so we've found that more and more in the coming years, we need content, we need ideas, we need topics, we need experts coming from the community to help guide the association, know what we should be focusing on. So I know we're going to talk a bit about what we're doing, but I'm very excited to hear what you all find is necessary and needed in your day-to-day jobs. Where can a focus on best practices or a conversation in the community really help? And then AVIXA can turn that into a guide or a help. So I'm excited about that piece of it. I will, just as an offer, put some things into chat, some links of some new guides that we've had out. And as I hear where the conversation goes, I might plug in some more resources in there. But I really welcome your feedback today into what we could or should be doing going forward. So with that, I will pass over to Greg, who is going to, I think, kick us off.
Yeah, thank you, Pam. Yeah, well, thanks for having me and inviting us here. It's a real honor to see so many famous and illustrious names on the call. who in one way or another I kind of follow in various forms here and there. So it's a real privilege to be here. Thank you. I think that really what I want to do is I want to keep this really very simple and straightforward with what I present now. The theme for today is really about engagement, I think. I'm going to tell you what we do in standards and what we're doing, what we're intending to do, work in progress. But I think really, Pam's going to feed some links into the chat. I'm going to give you just a very quick skim through a bit of PowerPoint. This is not going to be death by PowerPoint, or at least that will be the attempt of it. But I think the background to this, I've been involved in standards for many years. I've been involved in writing them and in the leadership of standards. I was there at the beginning when we first formed the standards. Well, it was standards steering, and then it was management. Then it went back to steering again, and we're still steering. But there is kind of a context to this because we've been. It was my luck, if you like, to come back to lead the group at the beginning of lockdown, at the beginning of the pandemic, and that was kind of quite a weird experience. We were expecting to have a kind of a face-to-face meeting in Fairfax in April, something like that, and of course we're still holding our breath, waiting for that one. Got a pretty shade of blue here. But what we've been doing in a rather extended way for a while now is that we've been having a strategic review of what we're at and where we want to be going. And if you like, a key word there is relevance. We've been working away. We've been producing our standards. I believe we've got some great work there. I believe we've got some great content there. But I think, we one of the reasons, apart from, some other more ordinary earthbound reasons, that it's taken us a long time to do this strategy is that it's really about how we engage and how we get some contents, and I kind of understand how we need to fit into the world. We pushed the boat out with standards, and we had a vision thing, and we pushed it out there, and it's sailing along very nicely. But this really is time for all kinds of ways that we actually today we want to be listening more than talking. And probably you'll agree with that by the time I've finished here. We're really happy to do this, and for me personally, I think that I just add in some personal comments. I'm quite closely associated with the LTSMG, the Learning and Teaching Spaces Management Group, which is the equivalent to you guys out in the States. And I'm very proud to be involved with that. One way that I kept my sanity at the beginning of lockdown was I did a series of webinars for them about standards and related stuff, and that was a very happy and positive experience for me. But now that we're kind of into at the end really of the second year of this, during the second year, it became very apparent to me. I'm thinking very specifically now about how this great drive to hybrid is happening, and I'm thinking, well, how does standards fit in that? One thing I'll be talking about in a moment is one of the standards that we have is DISCAS, which is a standard that I was involved with. I led that, and I can't remember, Pam, when that came out, but it was like 2013, 2014, and I'll say this thing now, but the thing with standards, or ANSI standards anyway, is it's like the 3 R's. You get to the end of 5 years, you've got to refresh, republish, or retire. You've got to decide the thing, because standards are very much a kind of a living, an ongoing thing. And I have to say, I'm obviously biased, but I always felt that DISCAS, stood the test of time really well. But now, February 22, a lot of excitement. A Teams front row has been launched, and now of course the main content is going to be in this little window in the middle of the screen. So, I feel very strongly for discussion that DISCAS needs to be refreshed to take account of that. And I think in the broader context, I think that for us in AVIXA, it's been a process of growth, really. What we've been going through, because AVIXA was a much larger organization, and we had various silos and so forth. Pam has been leading the thing to make all of these separations much more at least porous, and to get some really good overlaps. And the key word from Pam here is content, because you can slice and dice it in various ways, but it's in the end it's all about the content and how useful it is and how relevant it is. The standards, I run my business with standards. They're very important to me. I definitely have drunk the Kool-Aid here, as Pam will attest. But I think we won't have time to cover that today, but I think on the broader scope of things, there are other standards and standards bodies who I think we need to be aware of, and that's, if you like, part of our dialogue. I don't know, Mike, how it is over there, but one thing that I've been engaged with a lot more and more over the last couple of years is the WELL standard, and particularly now the WELL version 2 has come out. And I think that's just I'm not going to go down a rabbit trail there, but I think that's a kind of an example of where we've got areas of interest and overlap, where we find where are the opportunities to where we can find these kind of win-win connections with other organizations, and so that would be something that I would think of there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to do the PowerPoint bit. I'm going to skim through this very quickly, because, like I say, I think the thing to do is to get through this, and then we'll have the conversation, and then Pam or I will pull together a deck of slides, so maybe some more links, and curate them relevant to the conversation, rather than go this is it, this is what you've got to digest. So the whole thing with standards is is to understand what's available and how to use them. We have it's a great international cadre that we have. It's a kind of ever-changing mix, and we welcome very much new blood, fresh blood, and fresh faces. One thing that is changing is that in the standards that we do as AVIXA standards, and looking further to the as ANSI standards, is looking further into the future. We should be doing AVIXA standards. We're looking at best practices, but again, I don't want to leave the conversation. I want you to think about what standards mean to you, and not to be too prescriptive about what the definition of that is. But the reason I kind of took that side turn there is that one thing that we are going to be doing in future in ANSI, that we have a kind of a procedure, an audited procedure that we have to follow, and part of that is that we go to public review. We do the best we can with the standard. We do the work. We put it out to public review. Hopefully, we get some constructive comments, and hopefully, we don't find anything where we think, oh, why on earth didn't we think of that? But so to kind of make that a bit more of a bulletproof process, and hopefully to end up with a better result, what we're going to start doing is doing technical reviews. So we're going to put out our drafts to a sort of an invited cadre of interested parties and subject matter experts, and that's something that you guys could very much get involved with.
Can I peek in there real quick, Greg? So just to add on to that, that's something else that we're actively considering, is how the end product's not always going to be a standard for our standards group now. So it could be that we just need a quick conversation and a snapshot in time of this is where we think this issue stands. It could be a white paper. It could be even just a recording of a meeting. We're very open to what the output is, depending on what the need is, and being able to move quickly on some issues. So there's standards which need a shelf life. They need to be around for a while. They need to be an issue that we can decide on and keep updated. And then there's some things that change so quickly in our industry, but still need that standardization rigor to the conversation. So just as you're thinking through, when we're asking for your feedback on what we could do more, do differently, it doesn't always have to be a published ANSI standard at the end result. If the process of the standards conversation would be helpful, then that's something we want to know about and consider doing. I don't mean to interrupt your flow, Greg. I just want to make sure.
No. I mean, that's great, and I would welcome anybody jumping in to add to this conversation. I really want to make it as interactive as possible. I think that that's very much what we want to learn here, because the objective isn't the objective in the end is not saying that we want people to use these standards, or not in a direct way. The point is we want to help people do things better, and it's about those sorts of it's driven by that. It's not about we need you to get these certificates on the wall. It's about how these standards, this content, this knowledge that we have, how we can use it and use it constructively. I'm speaking personally now. I feel very much that we need to have a kind of a mature, if you like, 2.0 version of standards and how we do it, and this is part of this conversation. Right, let's get through this PowerPoint. When we talk about standards, we do need to be very rigorous about the definition of terms. One thing that bothers me a bit really is that the word standards itself is used in a bit of a kind of a loose way, and I think defining your terms of reference is really very important. And also I'd kind of, if you like, then I'd even slice and dice it at a higher level than that, because standards have got another meaning, isn't it? Standardization, about how you can replicate something, standardize something, as well as thinking about these sorts of quality kind of related meanings. What you'll find is that right up on the main banner of our website, AVIXA's website, there's a standards tab. There's some great resource there, I'd advise you to just click on that and have a little explore. In this presentation, there's mention of 11 standards, but we've got other standards that are going to replace existing standards. We've got other standards in train. This is not that presentation. We will, as I say, follow up with that, and you can find everything that you want on the website. And also, Pam and I would welcome any kind of questions that you guys want to give. Ping us an email, whatever it is. Let's do that. So I'm not going to read slides. So we've got this recommended practices for security and networked AV systems, and that's pretty that's been current for a while, but ongoing that's going to be the case. We have kind of two smaller, quite neat packages, rack design and rack building. And there you can see someone who's about 10 years younger at that point, at a task group meeting we had of the DISCAS standard. That was at Anadarko down in Houston. But the main inset picture there was the real superstar of that group. I don't know if you people know Dick Tolberg, who now works for Biamp, I think. I think he was at AVISBL before that, but he was the absolute superstar of that group. And we are about to, as I say, refresh that, and we're trying to tempt him back to. We call it voluntold in the organisation. We're trying to tempt him back to lead the refresh of that. This is another thing that you'll find that we do that this may be a little bit unsung with a lot of the one thing I think about, I like to say about standards is that at the heart of them there's just a kernel of, if you like, it's like a haiku where you just got there's a kernel of knowledge, a couple of really important things there. A lot of the standards, if you read them, there's a lot of padding there. There's kind of like the self-justification for why it's there in the first place and all kind of background reading, but the real stuff that you need to know is often very condensed and simple in the middle of it, and sometimes, as in the case of DISCAS, it's all captured in a couple of really cool calculators, and that's available on the as a resource on the website, but I'm just saying that as an example. ACU, audio coverage uniformity. We have a suite of 3 audio standards, and another couple are about to due out now. That's been overdue. It's been quite a troublesome path to get there, but I have to say, speaking personally, I'm very much the V part of the AV thing, and I do understand apparently there's an A part of the equation too. So, we do have these standards as well. Audiovisual systems documentation and coordination, that's self-evident. This is back to my background, the PISCAR standard, projected image system contrast ratio, and we've just very soon you'll see hitting the streets the ISCAR, so the projected image system contrast ratio, which is all about projected images, is now going to become ISCAR, image system contrast ratio, because it's going to be a standard now that applies to any display, and it's agnostic about the technology. It's all about the image quality, if you like, that's delivered. And this performance-based this performance-based thing is actually very important. AV systems performance verification, cable labeling, and we've got a bunch of other resources are there on site. Many of which are free, some of which you pay for. There's an example of the page that you see on the website. So that's the PowerPoint. Hopefully that wasn't too painful. Like I say, we're going to share a bit more detail in what we send as a as a follow up to this. But Mike, I hope that kind of set the tone in the way that you wanted it to, because I just really, we really wanted to do that. But before I hand back to you, Lance, you're sitting there looking, very serious and engaged. Is there anything that I've forgotten? Is there anything you want to add into that thread?
I think you pretty well covered it, as you always do, Greg. I really want to be here to listen, right? I want to hear what the community has to say a bit more than everything. We've got our standards. We've got what we know. We know where we're going. We know how we're planning on the back end. So I want to kind of see how specifically this vertical kind of fits into that, and being the fact that y'all are focused on education and we would like the standards to be educational, right? I think it kind of fit together.
Anything else to say, Pam?
I think we've gotten some interesting questions in the chat, and a lot of those are kind of discussion topics. I don't know if we want to tackle some of those.
Yeah,
Mike.
we will get to those as we go here. So that's great. Looking forward to that. Well, yeah. So first of all, yes, Greg, thank you. That was great. That was perfect. Just a quick overview of who you are and some of the things that you've put together. And yeah, I think there's some really exciting things here. So yeah, without further ado, I think we will just kind of go and dive into a couple of questions here and see where they lead. So Graham, you're up first with this question. How do we make companies like Microsoft listen to our standards? We can keep making the displays bigger and bigger, but if the content changes the UI to make the content smaller, how would we keep up? So I think that's a really interesting question. I'm not sure that's a question that we can solve here, but I would be curious to hear your thoughts on that. So.
Okay, so I don't know if I'm going to answer that directly, but just I just sort of throw something into the mix here. Another standard we've got in inbound is the user experience design for AV, and that kind of is going to be, I think, quite revolutionary and a bit of a game changer in many ways. I won't say too much about it other than to look out for it, but it does posit the kind of quite revolutionary idea, which is quite, I think, revolutionary for a lot of pro AV people. I hope I'm not being too disrespectful here. And this actually suggests that you talk to the users in the process of producing a design. And I think that we've been talking about content in terms of the meat of what we do within AVIXA, Pam. But the other part that Pam has discovered in her outreach, because Pam's been doing this incredible job with her team of trying to get as much feedback as possible, is that we if you like, we're about the media. What about the message? So the thing about content and engaging with that is really kind of one of those things for 2022 and beyond.
So Pamela, you replied to Graham and said that you have an opinion. So you going to share that opinion?
Yeah, I'm happy to. So the only way, in my experience, people pay attention is if you solve a problem for them. So that's where we've started to look more and more at sometimes joint standards, sometimes going all the way to that level of working with others to jointly solve something that impacts both of us. Sometimes it's just solving a customer problem that's out there well enough that it gets attention. And I think that's kind of what Lance, you were referring to too. Like, it matters when their customers care. Even if they don't care, when their customers do, they're going to start to. And that's where we've tried to look less in isolation at what is something that could be standardized that we could tackle within the AV industry, and more at what are some major problems that need solved, and is it solved through a content piece or through a standards process or through a meeting. And we're not limiting ourselves or thinking just within our silo. I'm standards and here's things I'd like to make. We're trying to look more at industry-wide problems, and then where is the avenue to try and solve that for people. So unless it's hurting them right now, they aren't going to care. So we find where their pain point is and try to mesh our efforts into solving that or helping that as well. And I'll pass it to Lance. I don't know if yours jives with that opinion, but
a little bit. I think I want to build on that, saying, maybe not necessarily solving a problem, but if you take their money away, they don't really like that, right? So lead with the customers. At least in my experience, I work for a small integrator. They don't listen to us. They barely acknowledge emails, let alone actually design and thinking and, okay. But get a larger customer who spends a lot of money with Microsoft, all of a sudden, okay, we're listening. Okay, that's on our agile development software rollout page that we've got that constantly works. But usually you hit them where it hurts, right? And I don't mean that in a bad way, right? But they listen to the money, they follow the money, ultimately.
John, I see you. We will get to you here in a second. I wanted to first, Atkins, I really appreciate your comment there about that the AVIXA standards are one of the only authoritarian arguments we have. And to me, that's been one of the best. I totally agree with that. That's been one of the best benefits of standards, is when we say the screen needs to be this big. Are you sure it needs to be that big? It can be smaller. No, this is per industry standards. The screen needs to be this big, and it gives some authority behind the statements that we're making. And so I didn't know if anyone else wanted to chime in on that part of that discussion, as far as that benefit of giving some authority behind some of the things that we say, instead of it not just being our own opinion. There's actually some industry behind it. All right, no other thoughts on that. We can come back to that if anyone else has any thoughts on that. So John, we'll go to you.
Okay, yeah, so my thoughts were actually kind of along that lines. John Hamilton, Emory University, Atlanta, Georgia. I was going to reference Atkins' post as well. So the things that I find out are most helpful for me and stuff, once I get involved in something, people trust me. And so it's later on that I run into I'm good. At the beginning, they don't. And so I always look at like buildings. When someone's building a building, I meet with the architects, or I'm looking at all this stuff, and they've got this, you've got to put a box here, cabling can only be this far, building's got to be built this way. And those kind of things are the things that are helpful for me, is it's like, don't run the audio cable with the power. It's like, I know that stuff, but does our contractor that's pulling that in know that? Are there reference points for that? not just screen sizes, but how many speakers do you need to cover a certain area? What are the ceiling heights for where you would put any of those type things that really never change. I mean, unless some technology changes or something that makes a, beamforming microphone all of a sudden made it different. Where do you put the microphone at? But a lot of that stuff would be helpful for me.
All right. Thanks for that, John. So I want to go around so Audrey asked a question about termination connector types, specifically Cat6a, solid FTP, and there's some discussion around that. I think this is actually leads to a broader discussion point that we're going to get to. And Jason, I see your hand. We'll get to you in a moment. And you kind of mentioned it early on, Greg, in your conversations about how do we also play nice with other standards organizations and especially in networking. So as we, again, I've said for a long time now that AV is IT. That gets a lot of debate, but but as such, standard organizations like TIA or AVIXA and those types of things, I think they actually have a lot of benefit to the pro AV environment and higher ed tech managers. So I was kind of curious from the AVIXA side, what are you guys seeing or working toward, or is there any kind of back end stuff toward more collaboration with some of these other standards organizations or cross-referencing standards, those types of things?
I'm going to take this one. I got some experience there recently. So we want to play nice, right? We want to keep the sandbox open and play nice. Others don't sometimes, but we do. And to Audrey's point, right, that having an AVIXA standard for Cat 6 would be irrelevant if TIA already has it established, right? And that is what everybody, we know the pinouts, some of us do at least, but for the most part, we know that, and we know to reference that standard, and that is like the gold standard. If you say 568B, most techs are going to know what that is without the TIA in front of it. And then the second part is time, right? We don't want to waste time kind of recreating what others have already done and have done well, right? We'd rather borrow, not necessarily steal, but blur the lines a little bit, like as we're trying to do. AV is IT or a segment of IT or an endpoint of IT, whatever you want to call it, and try to blur those lines and combine things as best as you can without creating, a fence or a silo or having others get defensive or even just kind of undermining, right? We all want to kind of play nice in that field.
Yeah, and I think it really is important for us to, as higher ed tech managers, to realize that there are other standards that we need to be paying attention to. The Cat 6 stuff is generally covered by other organizations, and we need to be aware of who they are and to be aware of their standards and perhaps implementing to their standards at the same time as we're implementing to the AVIXA standards. It's a community out there, and we just need to be looking beyond that. So, Jason,
but we'll take that though, right? We'll take their standard, make it a little bit better by adding a cabling label standard on it, right?
Mm-hmm,
so
that's right.
We know, 6 inches from the end, you're going to see this, and you come up with your own scheme. We're not going to tell you that, but hey, at least that cable's labeled and it's terminated properly. Like, just take it maybe a step further, right? We can do that.
Absolutely, and that cable labeling standard's a great example of that. So, Jason.
Thanks. And I just wanted to, I think this is just kind of dovetailing onto what a lot of folks have been saying. Just, I think from our standpoint, or my standpoint here, what I'm trying to do is to kind of help utilize these standards to kind of build this technical credibility in the most efficient way, right? So we can live within the project process and kind of coexist in a better way rather than kind of always fighting that. And what and Greg, I really appreciated the way that you kind of broke down the different standards, because it is a term that's kind of thrown around and can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. This is kind of more of a kind of technical AVIXA question, but let's say, for instance, if I'm like an elite member of AVIXA, is that the sort of, are there case studies or is that kind of consulting that I can do with my AVIXA rep to kind of say, here's what we have, here's where we want to be, here's our kind of facilities, kind of organization, how can we best apply these AVIXA standards within here to kind of reach X, Y, or Z? Because one of the things that another thing that I'm really interested in is really building up more quantitative performance standards, right? Because here it's a lot of kind of handshakes, or, oh, we always use this kind of thing here, but I want to get kind of more into these nitty gritty performance standards, because I think that will help build a better kind of design process throughout the organization as it kind of relates to, like, how we build rooms and things like that.
Go, Pam.
So I'm going to pass that to you. So here's my short answer, and then I'll get the long answer. The short answer is the folks that are on this call and people like them are the best resource there. The longer answer is we can't have staff that specialize in everything. So our staff are more about building those connections. So if you do have a specific question that's technical in nature, or you want a peer recommendation of here's how I went through that process and got from A to Z, we can probably find the right person for you. But today I would point you right at Greg. So he's on the line, because we have our standards community is the most engaged community at AVIXA. It's one of the largest. So I guarantee there's someone that's been through it. And then we can make that connection for you. That would probably be the best use we could be for you in that situation. But it also sounds like a great seminar title.
I haven't got anything to add to that, Jason. But I think the thing is that the strength of what we have is it's this combination of the structure that we have within the organization, but the thing is driven by volunteer effort, and that's effectively a community. They're a community of different types. I always see things in terms of Venn diagrams. That's just my little obsession. But we have we have different kinds of communities there. But just drop someone an email, me an email, or whatever, and then just start the conversation. You're always going to find some evangelist like me that you can engage with.
And I will just add on to that. So that's how we've done business all along. We are kind of network makers with AVIXA, but we're trying to formalize that now with the AVIXA Exchange. I don't know if I'm talking out of turn or saying things early, so just forgive me. It's within a closed group of friends if I am, but we're launching a platform specifically for this kind of a purpose, so that if you have a question like that, you can put it out to the AVIXA community at large and get connected with somebody that can then move it to a private channel. So I'll post something here into the chat that's on the Exchange platform, and that is hopefully going to be the future way to do that directly. So you're not waiting for an intermediary with us to find the right peers to have that conversation with. Hopefully I didn't spill the beans on that one.
It's very appropriate, Pam. So I think that people will be glad for that share once it becomes more apparent what that actually means in real life.
So I did want to just take a quick moment and share something up on the screen here too. And so hopefully everyone can see this. A couple of comments came up kind of about general guidelines for infrastructure, and actually there is such a document, and we actually just we're working toward finalizing getting this republished. And I don't know exactly where it's been placed since it's been we kind of talked about this at our Technology Managers Council or Technology Managers Forum at InfoComm this year, but we do have this document called the Audiovisual Information Technology Infrastructure Guidelines for Higher Education. And so this is actually a really great resource document. Again, these aren't standards, these are guidelines, but this kind of gives you some really good infrastructure requirements for the various types of bit pieces from an infrastructure perspective. So accessibility, sustainability, furnitures, ceiling heights, tiered floors, room geometry, lighting, and network design and network infrastructure. So, and we just a couple of years ago, we spent some significant effort to update that document and refresh that document for everyone. And we're looking forward to getting at that a wider distribution of that document. And so as that becomes available, we'll try and get more information out about where you all can go and grab that. So I know Atkins, you had a specific comment about, yeah, so there you go. I can certainly, Atkins, drop me an email. I'll send this document right to you. So, and I don't know if the one that you have posted there is the most recent one that I'm showing, or if that's the 2018 version. So, but we'll make sure that we get, we'll make sure we get the most recent version available soon.
Yep. If it's not the updated one, it will be by next week. That whole page is due to get revamped. So I'm pretty sure it's already the new version, but if not, next week for sure. Oh, there we go. It is.
Perfect.
Okay.
Perfect. So yeah, so that again, that's just another thing that certainly the steering, the standards committee had some impact in this, but this is the Technology Managers Council also had a significant impact in putting that document together. And so they all play together nicely. And we're trying to provide for the needs of our user bases. So yeah, so many chat. I can't. I tried to keep up for a while, and I just can't even begin to keep up. But but let's talk about that for a little bit. And again, I know you mentioned that earlier, Greg, and that's an interesting thing to me to talk about is moving to not only just providing formalized ANSI standards, but to providing more things that are guidelines, best practices, things that aren't maybe as rigorously authoritative, but do provide some really good insight. I do know early in the pandemic, one of the things that we were desperately hoping that we would see from AVIXA, at least in the technology managers side, is guidelines on how to disinfect AV gear, right? Or best practices on how to disinfect AV gear, like what are the best materials to use or not use. Don't ever use X material or X cleaning solution or cleaning cloths, but maybe these are better. And we never saw that. But that's the kind of thing that even as a quick response to passing trends would be great. So I didn't know if you want to expand on some of your thoughts there and where you guys might be headed more with more of these general types of comment or documents. So
Mike, can I flip that around on you? I'm just curious now, why would you look toward AVIXA or a body like AVIXA to publish that rather than just maybe say going directly to the manufacturer? Say we're talking, for example, just interactive touch panel. What would make AVIXA the authority on cleaning that rather than the manufacturer who actually knows the materials and would probably be better saying, don't use ammonia on this, for example?
That's a great question. I think it was more, to me, it was just as a industry organization, you have the ability to kind of gather and summarize that information from a lot of different manufacturers and provide a single document so that we didn't have to go ask 16 different manufacturers what their cleaning recommendations were for their products. And that's the beauty of having an organization like AVIXA, is that you can be the one-stop shop for those types of things that prevent us from having to seek out a lot of different opinions all at once. So you're muted, Greg.
Greg. It's a great perspective though, Mike. find that space bar.
The automated the spacebar didn't work for some reason. So I'll just say that I maybe unpack that in a slightly different way, because I think that looping back to what Pam was saying, if we've got some kind of a hub, some kind of exchange where that kind of need can be established, that's step one. Step two is to scope the thing out. To me, my kind of engineer's cliche, one of many, is I say to a client, you give me a really good brief and I can give you a really good job. And often the issue is to identify you've got the problem and then scope the thing out. And actually the third bit can often be really pretty simple. As Lance said, it might just be, okay, we'll talk to him and her, him and her. And that's the thing. So yeah, I think it's I think if you like, it highlights what this conversation is about, is just trying to get examples, specific examples of what people actually want and what would be useful. Sometimes it will be appropriate for us to do it, and but other times not. But I think some of these things can be handled with a kind of in a Scrum type environment. You can just do a piece of work. One thing talking about the well standard. Where if you like, so the well building, I can't remember, I'm losing it now because I'm live, but they're based out of New York, but their kind of definition of a standard is very different, because they've got such a big monolith of a thing, is that it's a very organic thing. So what they do is they go, okay, this is never finished, but what they do is they just keep putting out new releases and adding things on and taking a couple of things out, and it's an organic thing. And I think that's the speaking to what Pam was saying about thinking about new types of content, it's how we can have content that goes up there that is and then remains relevant for its serviceable life.
And it might be a great use for something like the exchange, because that could be a user generated thing. You said manufacturers dump it here, this is where we're looking, put all of your documents here. And then if it evolved into you need more than that, then maybe there's some staff resource time on AVIXA to organize it better. But the more we can cut out that middle layer of you having to request a thing and then wait, have it be considered, and then maybe we resource it and make it, that would be an excellent use case for that.
Yep. So I know the crew here from AVIXA was hoping to listen. So where, I'm just curious, as a group, where do you see opportunities for new standards or for revisions to current standards, or where are you finding that standards aren't working well for you? So what types of things would help us do our jobs better that they could maybe help us with? So Atkins said, as you add standards, it'd be really helpful to have the text from all of the standards searchable on the website, there with keywords tags. If I had a question related to speakers, I could search terms related to that, and it might pull up sections from 3 different standards related to speakers. Might make it easier to access and apply.
See Pam writing that one down.
Yep. I think one of the challenges from the AVIXA side on that is going to be that some of the standards cost some amount of money. And so, I could see that maybe such a searchable feature like that might be limited to people who are, premium or elite members. But that's something that they would have to consider. But I agree. I think that would be an amazing resource. So. I've never seen this group so quiet. The chat was going nuts and now it's all quiet. So
I'll chime in, Mike.
All right, go.
So I know I don't consider myself any sort of expert, but sometimes I'll read these standards and I find they're just hard to digest, right? There's a lot going on, and there's a good reason that there's a lot going on, because maybe viewing image size is an easy one to pick on for us higher ed people. Something we deal with all the time, but there's a lot of considerations related to that, and different factors that play in. And so I don't have a specific like thought to give you, but my question would be, how can we make them more digestible or like real world applicable after you read the full body of the standard and have all the information? So I know like viewing image size, I went through it very slowly over a lot of hours. I picked out all the pieces that were relevant to my day-to-day duties. And at the end, it boiled down to like 2 sentences. I need this and I need this. And for our campus, this is the standard. And so once I did that, okay, this is now very easy to digest for 90% of what I do. But maybe, you know, I haven't even read some of the others, but a way to make it easier to digest and use in a real world way. That's it.
I think that's you know, that's great to hear you say that and hear you express it like that. I think you know, a couple of points, you know, and I'd be interested to see what you think about it, Atkins. But I think that, you know, once you know, kind of once you know something, it's easy, and if you like, once you get over that little hump, then and you kind of, and then it's part of how you do and how you operate. Then it's very easy. And I think that, you know, that we have that there's, you know, so for example, you know, for your CTS renewal points, you know, you do a course. So I run one on Discas, for example, and to get your point, that has to be 1 hour long. Now, hopefully Pam's not listening at this point, but I have to say that I could deliver that, and I think I could make the people on the course, I can deliver that in 20 minutes. And yet then you'd be away. But I think the thing is that what we've got within AVIXA is that we've got different requirements, and that's kind of the point about this thing, about how we can unpack it. Because, you know, like you say, these things they're just full of stuff, and you know, but what, you know, you just want to know, well, hang on, which page do I need to go to? And, you know, in the case of Discas, the page you need to go to be honest, for the most part, is to go to the website and just use that calculator, because you don't have to do any thinking then, because someone's done the thinking. You know, Dick Tolberg did the thinking in advance. But the other thing I loved about what you said was that one of the points about Discas that a lot of people don't go for is that there's a kind of a loop that you're supposed to go through, where you kind of choose which which element height, which kind of acuity level that you want for your campus. And so that I think is like one of the key things for 2022. Please respond. Is that, you know, how you people take ownership of it on your campuses. You know, so what is it that you can take from these standards? You don't have to take the whole thing. You know, which is the part that works for us. You know, and how can we versionize it? That to me is how a standard lives and breathes. Not going, if you don't do it like this, then you're not in our club. That was never the intention in the first place.
Yeah, that's an amazing point, Greg. And it's interesting because in a Slack channel that we have, I asked that very question. I threw that out to everyone and said, okay, what do you use, you know, as percent element height on your campus? Because it's kind of cyclical, which came first, right? Well, at some point you need to kind of decide on what the percent element height is, to use some of the other stuff. And so, you know, I think one thing that would be helpful along those lines is, you know, and this is where it gets dicey, because it can depend upon what the content is on the screen at any particular moment. You know, one slide could be different than the slide that's coming up next, depending upon exactly what the content is on that slide. But to even say, you know, for higher education, you know, we might recommend a starting point of percent element height of this and adjust it to your requirements. For business, we might say this, or for this type of vertical or this kind of use case, you know, we might recommend a starting point is this percent element height, depending upon, you know, and then adjust it as you go. At least having that to start with would be a huge starting benefit to people.
Yep, and I'll just chime back in. So we did that, Mike. I mean, I answered your thing, but to your point, Greg, we took that we digested it. We said, okay, this is what we like for our university in most cases. And then we are putting that into our standard that we give our facilities groups that goes out to consultants, so that it doesn't just say you need to design with the AVIXA standard in mind, but when you do, use 2.5%. And so we kind of added that nugget in there. We'll see if it pays off. I don't know yet. And then someone said one other thing, that, oh, your webinar, that spawned the thought. Yes, that sounds like a perfect way to make standards digestible, is let's have a 1 hour session and just talk about it with the experts. So I love that idea. And if there are webinars that I'm missing, you know, I'll get on them, but having them for the different standards available would be amazing.
You're on the
I'm
side
done.
of the angels, Atkins.
Yeah, Aaron, I do love that daylight eye chart. That is a great resource document they put together at one point. But
yeah, and you know, and it's good old fashioned print as well.
right, exactly. So, yeah, Joanna, you're gonna have to reach out to your Legrand rep and just ask him to send you one. It's a flip book. I don't think it's something that is going to be well designed for a link or printing out, because it's very specific in the sizing and what they do with it. So, but they're happy to hand them out. So
I think Draper does
I'm looking
one
to see
too.
if I can find a link for it right now.
The other room, you look.
all right, so what else do we have from the group for discussion? We have about 3 minutes left, so we maybe get one more question in quick here. If somebody has one final question.
Oh, can I add one thing about the discus thing?
Sure, go.
I was just saying, a lot of companies also have already created their own, besides the AVIXA calculator, there's a lot of automated tools. A lot of like individual companies have created their own tools, like in Revit and AutoCAD and Visio, that'll automatically resize and show you what the display range is between the different element heights, and it'll actually show you each element height and then show you what, like the relationship to font size based on a resolution. So a lot of people have automated tools out there that do this in a clear way, and especially if you do this in Revit or tools like that do 3D, you can see the whole thing visualized, what it actually looks like in a space.
Yeah, Tom Mullins did a great case study like that in Revit, and using these camera points in Revit is absolutely a fantastic thing. And yeah, I completely agree with that.
All right, well, this has been a great conversation. So before we go, if you all could tell us how people want more information, how can they get a hold of you? If you could put your information in the chat, but as well as tell it for those who might be watching and listening this later. So Pamela, if people wanted more information, how might they reach out to you?
You can always just email me directly and reach me that way, or find me on the exchange if we're all allowed to be on that, which I think we are now. I checked quickly to see that I didn't disrupt too many marketing plans by talking about that.
What is your email address?
And you still got a job.
I'm gonna pop it into I still have a job. Yeah, most importantly, I'll pop that into the chat.
Okay. And Lance, if somebody wanted to get a hold of you, how might they get a hold of you?
LinkedIn, connect with me, Twitter at L_Feldenkreis. Good luck spelling that. I'll pop that in the chat. Email, I'll pop all my contact information in the chat for y'all.
All right. And Greg, how might they make contact with you?
I've just put my email in the chat, and I'll put my LinkedIn link there too. But yeah, it'd be great to hear from people.
All right. And again, I don't know if I introduced myself at the beginning, and most of you know who I am, but I'm Mike Pedersen. I'm the Audiovisual Experience Manager at Iowa State University. And if you want to get a hold of me, you can email me at mikeped, MIKEPED, at iastate.edu, or you can find me on the Twitters at ped1971, PED1971. And so with that, thanks everyone. And Joe, where are we going from here?
Hey, oh my gosh, that was so good. I love hearing people so much smarter than me, and this was fantastic. What happened to the great thing about standards is that there's so many to pick from, right? I mean that's the great thing. It's just no, this was fantastic. Sorry, I'm multitasking, removing spotlights, pins. Boom, there we go. You do have to readjust after we move all the spotlights back to the main view for everybody. But I just want to say thank you very much. First off, just to everybody from the steering committee who came in. It's just kind of following the theme of what we've seen for the last few days of, when we have our craft, I think it's really important in higher ed that we hold ourselves to such a higher standard. Not to play a pun on words, a play on words, but I think it is important. And that as we grow into being recognized and respected industry professionals, coming and having best practices like this and knowing that there is an organization, which again, I'm very thankful to AVIXA for our partnership and relationship that HETMA has with AVIXA. They've always been a strong supporter. And so being able to build this, I love the idea that's in the chat about having some type of monthly lunch and learn together so that we can improve our craft and hold ourselves to that standard. It'd be great if there was someone on the call here who could set something up like that. I wonder who could do that. But I think it's something that we really should do. And I look forward to this continued thing. So first off, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Lance. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Pam. Thank you, Mike, Future Professional of the Year, Mike, who will sit. And for putting this together. Everybody coming up. So we've got a little bit of a bio break coming up. Main room stays open, of course. Main room is always open for continued conversation. We move in 30 minutes. 30 minutes, right? Yeah, so 12:30 Eastern, that's 9:30 Pacific. And that is for AV Super Friends are actually going to kind of continue this conversation, but talking about the metrics side of it. I think, Chris, I see you're on, but there's no camera. Do you want to say a little bit about what y'all are doing coming up? If you're able to. He might just be eavesdropping and or walking in and out. And this is where I continually awkwardly talk until I see an unmuted microphone, and then there we go. And then I move on from there. And then we have Sharp NEC, who is also, I think I saw somebody on. Is anyone from Sharp NEC? We talk about, I saw the title of it. I have the title and I haven't updated it to talk about some of their solutions. I think it's Beyond the Classroom, I think is the title of theirs, which is going to be fantastic. So the way it works, as you all know, because we've down day 3 now, is you click breakout rooms at the bottom, and you will go to the Tech Manager panel. For AV Super Friends, you'll go to Sharp NEC room, for their Beyond the Classroom discussion. That is in 30 minutes, 9:30. We'll come back on and do some more shout outs and tell you all when to jump. But for that, I think I'm done rambling. There we go. Thank you all. All right, I could stop recording. Let's see.